Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Never Seen It. If we sound a little different, it's because we're coming to you from the Eastern time zone.
This is a special hotel recording with our old microphone in a really echoey room.
So yes, it is going to be very echoey and probably sound completely terrible. We apologize, but how else could we bring you the news?
What news is this, Trent?
Well, Betsy, I'm glad you asked. We just came from a performance on a stage.
But Trent, I thought this was a movie podcast.
This is a movie podcast, Betsy, but this time we went to a show that's actually based on a movie, and we saw it on Broadway.
Broadway. Yes, we took a trip to New York City.
York City?
We're at the time of this recording still in New York. Well, the New York area anyway.
We stayed in New Jersey.
We stayed in Jersey.
Cheaper.
But yes, we went and saw Trent's very first Broadway performance of Good Night and Good Luck, adapted from the 2005 movie of the same name.
Yeah.
And the performance was starring the same person who wrote the movie. That would be George Clooney.
Wrote and directed the movie.
He wrote and
George
directed.
Clooney. Yeah, thankfully, there were no understudies that we were aware of anyway. George Clooney was on the stage. He played the Edward R. Murrow character from the movie. And if you did not know, the movie is based on a period in the 1950s when Edward R. Murrow, who was a CBS a news reporter, he was an anchorman, he hosted a show on CBS where they covered topics of importance. And this was during the Red Scare, and Joe McCarthy was going after people for supposedly being communists. And it's a great movie if you've never seen it. It's one of our favorites. And, you know, that movie was given a whole lot of accolades. It was nominated for Best Picture at the time. And George Clooney, again, like I said, he wrote and directed and starred in it, but as the producer in that movie.
He played Fred Friendly in the movie, and in this he's playing Edward R. Murrow.
And originally, the movie was not based on a play. I don't actually know what this was based on other than just real life, if it was from a book or whatever.
I think it's just a historical drama based on real events.
I suppose. And you know I love a historical drama.
Right, and that's why when I found out this movie was being adapted for the stage and it was coming to Broadway, I was like, oh, Trent, I think we might have to take a trip because I know that you will be very interested to see this. And tomorrow we're actually going to see another one of these that was based on a play, and it's going to be a separate thing, but we're seeing Glengarry Glen Ross. So when I found out both of these were going to be on Broadway at the same time, you were
overlapping.
You were sold.
Yeah, so the reason why we're actually in New York doing this is for these things, but also, hey, Betsy and I just turned 40. We didn't really do anything else as a celebration of just turning 40. So we said, you know what? Let's combine our birthdays. Let's go off and do something special. Let's take a trip. We haven't taken a trip forever. But that's kind of our background here. We've seen the movie plenty of times. We love the movie. So what did you actually think of the performance on stage tonight? Because I honestly hadn't really heard a whole lot of reviews. I know it just got nominated for a few Tony Awards, including George Clooney as the main actor here. What did you think?
It really is amazing how seamlessly this movie got adapted and translates to the stage, because we've seen it enough times that I was listening to this play going, oh, well, this dialogue is verbatim. Like, I literally know that they are just doing exactly the dialogue from the movie. But then they found ways to really make it its own thing. And sort of in the presentation was how they do that. So when we're waiting for the show to start and there's a curtain down, I pointed out to you, there's black bars on the left and right sides of the stage because it was in 4:3 the way television used to be.
Yeah.
It's a subtle thing, but it's definitely an intentional choice.
And in those black bars on either side of the stage, they actually have embedded a bunch of old televisions of like the really, really curved outlines of the televisions from back in this era.
The tube TVs.
Yeah. They had those up there. Not only to show you, you know, footage that would go off to the broadcast, but also give you kind of a slice of life. Because in the course of the show, they would show like the run up to the airing of the show, because most everything back in the 50s was live.
Yeah, they're having to show all of the commercials and all of the different previous programming.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed them putting in a whole bunch of extra commercials, like real to life of the era commercials for fucking ivory soap, and there's even like a hair pomade, which was kind of a nice, and maybe not so subtle jab at George Clooney for being in that other movie. But yeah, I really like how they presented this. The really impressive thing to me was at certain times when the scenes were transitioning, and especially you knowing the movie, you know when a scene is about to end, but the actual sets that they have on stage were either on rollers or this particular stage has some kind of movability to it. But as these scenes were ending, they were literally being rolled off the stage and the new set pieces were coming in.
Because the whole thing takes place in one location. And the movie mostly takes place in one location. There's maybe like 2 or 3, like they go to a little bar nearby, or they go to somebody's apartment. But the majority of the movie is in that newsroom in various places in the office.
It's the newsroom. It is his broadcasting desk. It is an office, like the big man's office.
They go to D.C., I think, at a train station one point.
But even then, all they do is put a camera as if they were interviewing somebody on the front of the stage. And then what they do here is really, really cool. They take some of the same news footage from back in the day that they showed in the movie, but they showed it on screens in the theater.
So those little TVs on either side of the stage and kind of staggered throughout. Like we had one that was maybe 15 feet ahead of us or less than that.
Totally.
So we had one really close, and then they brought down a giant screen
so
for
that
the people in the back
see.
could see.
Yeah, we did not get really, really good seats, but we could see just fine.
And we were pretty far to the right side of the audience, so there was a couple of moments where there was clearly stuff happening on the right side of the stage that we couldn't quite see, but you know what's going on.
You got the gist of it. This was also a really short play as well. This was only like an hour and a half, hour 40.
And the movie is short too.
Yeah, movie is really short.
So is this actually longer than the movie is?
I think so.
Because they adapted it and added a few things. So like I noticed the character who was married, and he says, you know, there's a moment in the movie, and they translate it to the play, where they're gonna do the story about Senator McCarthy. And they say, you need to make sure everybody on your team is clean. If you went to a meeting, if you subscribe to a newsletter, we need to know if you are any way involved, because this is a really delicate time in American history. And this guy says, well, my ex-wife, I wouldn't say she was a member, but she definitely attended meetings. And in the movie, they don't elaborate on that. They basically use that as a demonstration of the fear is in this room.
Yeah.
But in the play, he actually got his own scene, and that's not in the movie.
It's really not. And it's possible that maybe it was a part of a different version of the movie
they
script
cut it.
And it was cut out, But I really enjoy how they fleshed out a couple of these characters. Even the Hollenbeck character got a little bit extra. And of course, he's the other kind of TV reporter who comes on right after Ed Murrow.
Played in this case by Clark Gregg.
Yeah, and if you don't recognize the name, he's the guy who plays Agent Coulson in all those Avengers movies and in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and whatnot. But yeah, they give him his own arc. They give him extra that they don't really do in the movie. And I think in the show, like you said, they kind of make it its own thing. Whereas I think the best moments here, at least to me, because I've seen the movie so many times, the best moments here is when they go off script, as it were, away from the movie.
The other thing I really liked was there are certain points, because this is based on real events and it's based on a real newsman, and they have all of the interviews and reports that they did. They have the actual footage that they used. They used slightly different versions of the same footage. So like there's
longer cuts.
Yeah, longer cuts, or maybe a different portion of the same interview instead of the one we're used to seeing in the movie.
Yeah.
Like they have a thing where he does an interview with Liberace, and it was a completely different part of the interview.
Totally, yeah.
And that was the stuff that I really liked, where I'm like, oh, okay, they're really trying to adapt this to be a little bit different and a little bit, not exactly like if you hear people like us who have seen the movie all the time, you're going to notice that. But the people who have never seen the movie and are just going to the show blind, they're going to get a completely different experience.
They also did things in a little bit of a different order as well. Like they talk about the Annie Lee Moss character first, like they're already kind of getting that footage all together at the beginning of the show. Then the Radulovich guy comes in after that. In the movie, it's just reversed. But this just tells you that the newsrooms in these places are constantly working on stuff, and these stories come together at different times.
And it was also, that was one of my favorite things about this. It was the first time we did a broadcast, and it was such chaos on the stage.
Oh, yes.
Where the whole room is like typing and yelling and, is it going to be ready? What's going on? That guy's got to do a voiceover. And they're sliding in set pieces, and George Clooney's coming out asking, is it going to be ready? And everybody's yelling, it's really loud in here.
Yeah, let's pipe it down.
And then all of a sudden it gets very quiet, and they have a real camera on stage pointed at George Clooney,
Yeah.
and that is piping out to the audience on the big screen.
And what's really cool is that they also keep with the black and white nature of the movie, because all of the TV cameras that they're shooting George Clooney with, it's all authentic, and it goes out to all of the televisions in the theater as well.
And the thing I kind of figured that they would do, they did at the end of this, because of course the question you always have to ask is, why are you bringing anything to Broadway? Why now? Why this show?
Yeah.
And this one is a movie about the Red Scare, and as you said, the McCarthy trials, and how this journalist had some fucking integrity, and he said, this is ridiculous. He is infringing on people's civil liberties, and I've had enough, we've had enough, and they started doing news stories that effectively brought down Senator McCarthy.
In essence, yes. But at the same time, the movie is framed in a way where it's kind of starting at the end of his career. He's being honored for his work on his shows. And at the end, it kind of comes full circle, and he's warning of the dangers of media, and media becoming less of a format where you're going to learn something, and it's just kind of turning into a situation where media, all it's doing is distracting us, all it is doing is entertaining us, all it is doing is insulating us from the real world.
He's warning us of the boob tube, as it were.
Yeah, and we've talked plenty of times on this show about the fact that you should not just get your information from one source. You should not just trust that your one source of information has your best interest at heart, and so on and so forth. But like you alluded to, at the end of the show, they kind of bring it into modern day ever so slowly, because they have this big screen on stage, like you said, and they begin to show footage throughout history from the end of where this movie is actually taking place, from the 60s of the assassination of JFK, MLK, RFK,
getting faster,
all sorts of Ks,
getting faster and louder and crazier
and
weirder.
We transition into the cable news business. We turn into the 24-hour news business. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News are all on screen, just bombarding you with all sorts of different bullshit that means nothing. It is just meant for you to keep on watching so that they can continue to sell their ads.
And he delivers the final punchline of good night and good luck.
Yeah.
And it hit really differently when you're watching this show live on stage in 2025, when you include that. And also the thing that I was really reacting to, I'm not going to spoil the moment, but there's something that happens to one of the characters. And I never get emotional when watching the movie, but I found myself getting emotional tonight because I'm looking at George Clooney on screen, because he's not even on stage as far as I know, because we couldn't see him. He might have been backstage.
He kind of blends into a lot of different scenes too.
And he's being projected on the screens, but he's like wiping his eyes because he's emotional. And the thing about live theater, even though I'm looking at him through a screen, I know he's doing that right now.
Yes.
And it was making me emotional in a way that this movie has never made me.
Yeah, think about when, news anchors, they're just sitting in the chair and the camera's pointing at them at all times. Well, they're cutting away when they're at the end of the broadcast, but the camera's still running. It's that kind of a moment here where he's at the end of his sentence, he stops for a beat, and he kind of pulls back and he wipes his eye because he started to cry. And it's seeming like a genuine moment here, because he's also on a different set. He's on this other guy's set. Yeah. So maybe that they wanted to do maybe not necessarily a correction, but do it from a different perspective maybe. I don't know.
But between that moment and the end of the show, where they are really like throwing a lot at your senses, and just the overall presentation, I really liked it. As I said when we started, it translates really easily from the movies to the stage in a way that was really well done. And they managed to find ways to maneuver set pieces so that it looks like, oh, this is a different part of the studio, but it's just one set.
And another thing that I really want to give them credit for is also in the movie, during some of the transitions in different parts of the story, you have this woman who is singing. They kind of cut over to this other studio where she's recording live vocals for a song that she's singing.
Jazz music.
Yeah.
It's very permeated. The only music in the movie is classic jazz standards.
Yes. And in the show, they do the exact same thing.
I was really wondering if they'd work that in.
In the scene transitions, you have this woman who is credited as Ella, as in Ella Fitzgerald.
We assume so anyway, given the time and place.
But she is actually elevated above everybody else. I mean, the show starts with her in the center frame, but during the show, she's elevated way up.
And there's a live band. We couldn't see them, but I could see them on the camera when they pointed it at her.
Yeah, so they're playing the music and she's up there singing. And there's even a couple of moments here where it's as if she was like flubbing her lines for the recording of the songs, but it's just real.
They threw a song at her and she didn't know the words to, so she's like, someone give me the sheet music. I'm going to learn this before the afternoon broadcast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So, you know, the things that you see in a normal live production, they happen. Like George Clooney wasn't perfect. There's a couple of moments where he didn't necessarily flub a line, but I noticed that he was looking for his words, and then it just kind of came out of him very, very quickly.
Or he almost said one word when it wasn't that line yet. I caught that too.
There was another moment here where during the last final speech he was giving, when he's on the big screen, he had to stop and cough. And there was a couple of times here where I could tell that he really wanted to cough. Thankfully, he was able to wait until they cut to some other footage.
Or clear his throat or something.
And he could clear his throat while that's playing and take a drink of water. But then again, Edward R. Murrow would have to do the same thing.
Trent, live theater is a beast. And he's doing 99 performances in a row with nary a day off in between, sometimes 2 shows a day. That is a lot for anybody. And he does it all the time, but not theater. Like literally in the program, it says he hasn't done theater since 1986.
And it wasn't Broadway. This is his first Broadway production ever.
Yeah, so it is a real workout to do that kind of production. And I'm actually quite impressed that he only had to cough or do something like that a couple times.
And there's a lot of words in a lot of this stuff here too.
It's extremely dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of it, I'm sure, verbatim to the broadcast. If you go and watch Edward R. Murrow, I'll bet a lot of this is to the letter. And he's also doing a little bit of an impression, because Edward R. Murrow, the newscaster, when he was presenting, had a certain cadence. And you could tell that Clooney's doing that.
He's trying to do a little bit of it anyway. I didn't really get a whole lot because, again, I have seen the movie plenty of times, and I have no idea whether or not it's the David Strathairn coming out of him or if it's actually Ed Murrow. I have no idea. I haven't really seen a whole lot of Ed Murrow.
It is Ed Murrow, because I've seen just enough to know, after having watched Good Night and Good Luck, it perks your ears up when you hear the real Edward R. Murrow, because he is actually capturing that cadence very well.
Okay.
And I think Clooney wasn't doing it quite to the extent that David Strathairn does in the movie, but he was doing enough for the stage that you know who he's supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah, I think he definitely got his cadence down, not necessarily his voice, but then again, David Strathairn just kind of sounds like himself in that movie too.
And apart from his character, everybody else in the show is doing something completely different from the people who did it in the movie. Like they all are different ages. They have different like regions. Like there was one guy who was very much New York, where in the movie it's just like an American, generic American.
Sure. And there's also that they changed some characters. They combine characters here, where at the end of the movie somebody gets fired, quote unquote. But in the show, they combine it into the Fred Friendly character instead of the guy played by Jeff Daniels in the movie. So, I mean, that's kind of all I had to say about this. This was never going to be a full episode. I hope you guys appreciate us sitting down here at 10 o'clock at night to record this in a very echoey hotel room.
And we hope that you actually go watch Good Night and Good Luck if you haven't already. It's one of those
movies. Go see the show if you're in New York.
If you can get tickets. It's going to close soon. So.
That's true. Just for context, we saw this Tuesday, May 13th for their 7 o'clock show. So yeah, that's when we're seeing this. I have no idea when the actual show ends. But suffice it to say, I think they really knocked it out of the park here.
So you were satisfied with your very first Broadway experience?
It was. And Betsy, we have another one of these tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's going to be a matinee. So I'm really hoping that they don't have to replace any actors, because sometimes matinees, they bring in the understudies.
We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a good show either way, but you'll have to wait until later to hear our thoughts on that one.
Yeah, and I have no idea what we're going to call this, when we're going to put this out. So, hey guys, thanks a lot for listening to Never Seen It. Make sure to go over to patreon.com/neverseenitpod. We're also going to put up a travel log of our adventures in New York City. So until then, this has been Never Seen It. My name is Trent.
My name is Betsy.
We'll catch you next time.
Good night and good luck.